Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Kartika Chandra Puspita, and today I wanna tell you about managing change. At this time, I will describe 5 activities that are the foundation of change management. Let's see, the first is motivating change, and the second is creating a vision, and the third is developing political support, and the fourth is managing the transition, and the fifth is sustaining momentum, and they will create a effective change management. So, let's talk about motivating change. Motivating change have two elements, and the first is creating readiness for change, and the second is overcoming resistance to change. For the creating readiness for change, there is 3 methods can help generate sufficient dissatisfaction to produce a change. For the first method is sensitize organization to pressure for change. Is internal pressures to change include new leadership, poor product quality, high production costs, and excessive employee absenteeism and turnover. And the second method is reveal discrepancies between current and desired stage. Its significant discrepancies between actual and ideal stage can motivate organization members to initiate corrective change, particularly when members are committed to achieving those ideals. Method is convey credible positive expectation for the change. Is the key to achieving these positive effects is to communicate realistic positive expectation about the organizational change. And the next is overcoming resistance to change. There are at least 3 major strategies for positively dealing with resistance to change. For the first is empathy and support. This strategy can identify people who are having trouble accepting the change, the nature of their resistance, and possible ways to overcome it. But it requires a great deal of empathy and support. And the second is communication. Effective communication about change and their likely results can reduce its speculation and allay unfounded fears. It can help members realistically prepare for change. And the third is participation and involvement. One of the oldest and most effective strategies of overcoming resistance is to involve organization members directly in planning and implementing change. Foundation number 2 is creating a vision. In creating a vision, that is describing the core ideology and constructing and vision it. Describing the core ideology is the fundamental basis of a vision for a change is the organization's core ideology. It describes the organization's core values and purpose and is relatively stable over time. In contraction, the envisioned, there is bold and value outcomes and desired future state. Bold and value outcome is description of envisioned future often include specific performance and human outcomes that the organization or unit would like to achieve. These values or outcomes can serve as goals for the change process and standards for assessing progress. And desired future states is this element of the envisioned future specifies in vivid detail what the organization should look like to achieve bold and values outcomes. Foundation number 3 is developing political support. And this is sources of power and power strategies. If individual sources of power have knowledge, their power strategies is playing its state. If individual sources of power have other support, their power strategies is using social network. And if individual sources of power is personality, their power strategies is going around the formal system. Managing the political dynamics of change include the following activities. The first is assessing change agent power. The first task is to evaluate the change agent's own sources of power by assessing their own power base. Change agents can determine how to use to influence others to support change. And the second is identifying key stakeholders. These key stakeholders can toward or support change, and it's important to gain broad-based support to minimize the risk that a single interest group will block the change. And the third is influencing stakeholders. This activity involves gaining the support of key stakeholders to motivate a critical mass of change. There are at least three major strategies for using power to influence others in OD or organizational development. Is playing it straight, using social network and going around the formal system. Foundation number 4 is managing the transition. In managing the transition, a broad set of activities involve managing the learning process during change is first is activity planning. In activity planning, we should know how to roadmap to make change. Second is commitment planning. That we should know is how the right arrangement to position the change agent and the power to make change. Third is change management structure. That we should know is how to influence their behavior. And the last is learning process. To accelerate the learning process, implement for learning practice. It's creating a way to enable members of the organization to see the organization as a whole, create shared meaning, involve members of the organization in after action reviews, and carry out the implementation process and decision to the lowest level possible in the organization. And decision is a transition from current stage to transition state and desired future stage. The last foundation is sustaining momentum. When an organization change is being implemented, it's important to maintain energy and commitment to implement this change. There are at least 4 ways that can be done. The first is provide resources for change, and the second is build a support system for change agents, and the third is develop new competence and skill, and the fourth is stay the course. Okay, that's all from me, and if you have a question, you can ask me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.